I'm not sure how many of you have been able to see this where you sit in the pew. This is a pitcher for water, for hope, for helping us to understand that in the year 2020, the Mennonite Central Committee will be 100 years old. This pitcher was commissioned by the National Central Office of the Mennonite Central Committee. One of these was sent to every relief sale that will be held in the year 2020. It is to help us think about the significance of MCC, how it came to be, and what the message might be for the future. As I look at this picture, then I am tempted to think, at least in terms of my first reaction, of the phrase from Matthew 25, "I was thirsty, and you gave me drink." The other symbol I thought of is that in various places around the world, people are dependent upon a jug like this, carried perhaps on their head or in their arms, for water to quench the thirst of men, women, children, animals. For 100 years, the Mennonite Central Committee has responded to the thirst that people have called out, that they have cried about, that they have expressed a desire to improve their life, and that we have responded by sending people, having people volunteer to go around the world. The celebration of 100 years of relief, development, and peacemaking will take place in the year 2020, all across the United States and Canada, and even in Europe. The Kansas Mennonite Relief Sale, along with sales all over the United States and Canada, will celebrate and are asked to help celebrate with us this celebration of 100 years in terms of the centennial. For many of us, we know the story of MCC, how it came to be. In 1920, in the aftermath of World War I, in the aftermath of the Russian Revolution, and in the midst of a deep drought, there was a call, a hunger, a thirst that went up from the Ukraine. Various Mennonite organizations gathered together to think, what could we do? The Ukraine government said it would be easier if we could only had to work with one committee as opposed to 6 or 7 or 8. And so these Mennonite groups came together to form a temporary central committee, the Mennonite Central Committee. In 1922, this central committee, this temporary committee, fed about 20 to 25,000 people a day at the peak of their time. It is it's fairly provable that they saved at least 9,000 people from starving. They regularly fed over the course of the time that they were there 75,000 people. This from a organization that was set up to be temporary. In one of their initial efforts for this temporary committee to be able to help people help themselves, Fordson tractor and plow combinations were sent there so that they could plow and till and plant and reap the harvest and help themselves. MCC's role has always been to help people help themselves. This temporary committee still exists today. 100 years later, it still acts as a beacon of light and a practical example of Christian generosity and Christian action. It is this desire to carry out the mandate to feed the hungry and give water to the thirsty that has created an organization that responds to needs around the world. We do so not because we feel guilty, but because we react out of God's love. We recognize, and should recognize, that what Christ has done for us, we should do for others. As I prepared this Kingdom Report, I read books, found things on the internet, talked with people, and learned much about MCC and the people who have made up the Mennonite Central Committee over the years. In fact, what I know is that I look out over the congregation. There are many of you that have been a part of Mennonite Central Committee over the years. I intended to share some stories because there are some tremendous stories. But there are literally thousands of them. And how could I digest all of those wonderful stories down into one or two that would tell the complete story of MCC? So I went back to the picture and asked myself, what was the thirst that called people to respond, to join MCC, to go around the world to help? One was a gentleman working with MCC who had the task of trying to feed and give milk to kids at the end of the war. He went home every night guilty. How can I decide who gets the milk and who doesn't? And so an effort was made in order to send animals, cows, horses, mules, fowl, chickens, to Europe, to Asia, to various places. And so seagoing cowboys were created, young men to take care of those animals, to help people help themselves. Another cry was to help children. And in 1941, a young woman from Goshen, Indiana, responded to a call from MCC to go to France in 1941 to help with refugee children coming out of Spain because of the Spanish Civil War. She went there. She felt she was chosen because she could speak French. Maybe because she was kind of a daredevil a little bit. She was willing to take up a challenge. She had a lot of ingenuity and a lot of common sense. Lois Gundon Clemens worked in this children's home, helping feed refugee children, taking care of them as they came from the refugee camp, 30 at a time, except for the Jewish children. And the Jewish children stayed with them. She realized, as did the woman who ran the home, that this was a dangerous situation, but it was one that they felt that they must do. Lois took care of those kids using ingenious and inventive ways in order to try to tell the police, when they came to collect these Jewish children, that they were not available. She could see them coming, so she put them to bed to take a nap. Because you don't want to take the children now because they just went down for a nap. Or they would go on a walk. And she would say, they are out getting exercise, getting a walk. They are not here now. You'll have to come back another time. Eventually, she was arrested. She was taken to Germany, where she was held as a prisoner of war. She had developed enough relationship with the people at the home that she was willing to turn over MCC funds to help take care of the rest of the children. When she came home after the war, people asked her what she had done. She said, worked with kids, yeah, and I was arrested. She died a few years ago at age 92. And what came out at some point is that in her lifetime, working there, of the Jewish children that were put in her care, she lost not one of them. Since 1920, MCC has been involved in 55 countries, sharing God's love and compassion for all in the name of Christ by responding to basic human needs and working for peace and justice. Mennonite Central Committee still responds when there is need, and in the world today with climate change, population growth, turmoil, and many refugees, water is one of the most important things. Water is life. A special gift of $1,000 will help MCCers and local people from around the world dig 10 water wells. In this centennial year, Kansas Mennonite Relief Sale is providing an opportunity for people to give a gift prior to the sale. If 1,000 people would give $1,000, $1 million would be raised for MCC to be able to continue feeding people, caring for people, educating people, responding to events around the world. Imagine what MCC could do with $1 million. Imagine how you might contribute. You might get the opportunity very soon. This year is exciting. It is fraught with possibilities of how we will be able to celebrate this extraordinary organization. There will be concerts. There will be meetings. There will be time for MCC alumni to get together. It will be a wonderful, wonderful time in which we can celebrate the compassion and the understanding of Christians who respond out of God's love by working with an organization that has nothing in place except the desire to do good in this world and to make it a better place. Amen. And this picture will be up here if you would like to see it. It's quite a wonderful thing.